Our first story deals with a subculture of heavy metal music that some feel is sending a dangerous message to your kids.
The forces of evil on the dark side of devil rock.
And I want to talk tonight about the devil and demons and witches and wizards.
And we just mix it up with hardcore and aggression and come out with something we think's an original sound.
Loud, fast, heavy, you know.
Well, what do you got?
What do you got?
You're listening to Riff Worship, the podcast that attempts to answer the age-old question, what makes a riff? Why do we care about the riffs? Talking about our favorite albums concerning riffs. I'm one of your hosts, Austin Paulson. With me, as always, are my friends in music, Justin Swindle, Dylan Adams. How are y'all doing?
Doing just great. Doing wonderfully.
Yeah? Even after this?
Dylan's going to be touching on some things later, it looks like. From
always
the look
touching. Always touching things.
Hey, man. It's, with a record like this, I don't know if I'm going to be okay. It's been a long week. It's not sludge, but it's doom, so I can't open a chorus light, so I'm a little bummed on that.
Well, take your bra off, let your hair down. We're sticking in Boston this week.
Man, it's like oh God, it's the Dropkick Murphys song and The Departed, right?
Yeah, we're staying in Boston this week.
Talking about Bane.
We're talking about Bane this week.
Doesn't he just scream Bane the entire time?
Yeah, right, yeah. So there's one person that'll be stoked about that joke.
We're still in Boston. We were in Boston last week. We're in Boston again this week. Whereas last week we had a 10-minute record. We are doing the complete opposite this week. It is slow. It is heavy. It is, it's something else. We're talking about Grief and their album from 1994, Come to Grief, their debut record. Have y'all heard of this band before? Have you listened to this band before? Justin, Dylan, whoever wants to start.
I don't think I have.
All right.
They
I
had
thought there was more to that.
They had a collection of songs from 2015 that I recognize the cover for, so I might have listened to it like once, but not like in depth.
I've listened to this record before, probably once, maybe twice. I'm not crazy familiar with it, but I listened to it in response to the Decibel Hall of Fame that they did for it, because anytime that magazine releases a Hall of Fame, I will at least listen to whatever record that is once. And it hit me as kind of just a doom metal record to me. I think I was anticipating something that sounded more in vein to maybe the New Orleans style stuff. And I got more of like, oh, this is like doom. This is big, long songs. If the songs were mid-tempo, you'd hear the riff a little bit more in a brick as opposed to being stretched out over time. It's heavy. It's unpleasant, negative. You definitely need to watch like the Care Bears after listening to this fucking record, or Disney's Gummy Bears, whatever your choice is.
Splitting the room already.
It's splitting the room. It's heavy. It's uncomfortable to listen to. But man, is it fun.
It's like watching the Antichrist.
Yeah, it is very uncomfortable. Yeah, watch that at 3 a.m. when your friend tells you to do it when you're all alone. There's no one around you. It's dark. You're in a media building of a college that you drop out of. I don't know. It sounds very personal and specific, but trust me, that's the only way to watch that movie.
At least there weren't any logs laying around,
Lars von Trier, man.
It is a bleak record. I do like that you said it's certainly more of a doom record.
Mm-hmm.
I think it does have like,
it's got elements.
It's got some upbeat parts, upbeat, maybe
some
more
boogie,
mid-tempo parts, I should say. There's some groovy parts. But yeah, it is a very slow record. But I will also say this to me sounds like a crust punk band playing doom metal. And
yes,
there is a reason for that. But I got into this record fairly recently as well, like maybe within the past couple of years. Friend of mine, friend of the show, John Hoffman from Weekend Nachos turned me onto this record. He's a big fan of this. He has a project that is like basically directly influenced by this band and like-minded bands. So checked out some Grief, checked out the kind of later project, the resurgent kind of project Come to Grief that, has been active within the past couple of years. But so I kind of got into it through that. This was an album that I kind of picked out that I really wanted to talk about. 30 years old this year, 94. As Dylan mentioned, there's also a Decibel Hall of Fame article on this. So we've used that as kind of a direct source for some of the information that we pulled for this episode, as well as a bunch of different interviews from over the years as well. But this is a band from Massachusetts, from the Boston area, but they formed out of a completely different band, a much faster band called Disrupt, which is basically a crust punk band that was formed by Jay Styles and Pete Camarinos back in 1987. Both of those guys were vocalists of this band at the same time. The band had two vocalists.
Hell yeah.
Terry Savastano joined in 89. He was basically like a guy who hung out around the band a lot. He helped them book some of their first shows. He roadied for them a bit, and then he was asked to join after a while. And so a lot of like the lyrical content that's featured in this band maybe is like kind of a standard thing along this style of music. Animal liberation, anti-establishment, just kind of thinking and acting for yourself. But it is very disgusting music. It's heavily distorted, very fast. One thing that I did before kind of getting into this episode, though, I think there's some like collections on Spotify that you can listen. You can basically probably blow through the entire Disrupt discography in a good, 30 minutes to an hour. There are some elements of sludge in some of those songs. Like it's all very fast, but like one song in particular that stood out to me was Down My Throat, which features like just like a very slower kind of sludgier section. It's very brief, but it's there. So I'm like, okay, maybe this is like a thing in the back of people's mind at the time. Like maybe this is something that, would come up later, and it certainly did.
It's like a precursor to power violence, just like super, super fast, and then like the slowest breakdown you could possibly think of.
Yes, definitely.
There's a band called Amoebics that does something very similar in vein, and they kind of come from that. They come from that crust punk kind of early 80s kind of British social political hardcore stuff like Discharge, that kind of area. Amoebics was a big influence on early Neurosis. So it's very kind of in that same vein, very grimy, very dirty sounding. I think they went down, you could almost blend that stuff with like industrial, and it kind of goes into a different direction. But yeah, it's that kind of sound. One thing upon listening to this Grief record is that I did want to listen to a little bit of Disrupt just to hear it, because you kind of hear it so much with all the research, and it's, I wanted to dig my mind into that. And I think Relapse put out a really great compilation from Disrupt that you might be referring to. That is, it's got like a white cover to it, but I think the whole catalog.
Grief basically forms as a 5-piece in like winter, Christmas time, maybe like New Year, time of the year around like 1991. And it's basically all of the original members of Grief are basically from Disrupt. You have Jeff Hayward, who's the vocalist of Grief at this time. Randy O'Dearno, I'm going to say. Apologize if I mispronounced that. He is the bass player in Grief initially, I should say. Randy also attempted to do vocals in this band initially, but they were so like harsh, like he just couldn't do it. Like it was such a strain on his voice that he basically went out and bought a bass and became the bassist of this band. You have Pete Donovan on drums, who there's some quotes that said like all 5 members of this band initially were members of Disrupt. I couldn't find where it said Pete was a member of Disrupt, so I think it's like 4, but I could be wrong. So maybe there's just some information floating out there about that. You have Jay Styles, who I mentioned was a founding member of Disrupt. He's on guitars. And then Terry Savastano, who is basically not only the guitarist of this band, but he's kind of like the brainchild. This was like his band. Like he had always kind of wanted to do something like this. And I think he kind of approached the Disrupt guys about it, and maybe, a handful of guys, they were basically just interested in doing something a little different than the quick kind of fast paced songs in Disrupt. So thus you have this just like slowed down, dirgy music. Some of the influences that kept coming up when I would do research, obviously Black Sabbath. Terry was like a huge fan. Yeah, crazy, right?
No
Weird.
way.
Oh my God.
A doom metal band loved Black Sabbath.
Yeah. He said basically since he was 11 years old, that was like a, defining moment in his musical journey. Aurora, Illinois, Trouble. Maybe one of the quintessential kind
Light
of
metal.
Yes. Yeah. I guess if we're getting into that, some of the Christian elements in that,
Yep.
but definitely one of like I would say some of the first bands that when like doom actually became a genre, thus you have Trouble. In that same breath, you also have Saint Vitus, which may have been one of the bigger influences on this band. Terry was quoted with saying, "The day I got Hollow's Victim pretty much changed everything. I realized then this was something I wanted to do and something that I could do." One of the biggest catalysts for sludge metal as a genre, the Melvins, of course, played a big influence on this band, as did, bands in the Pacific Northwest, as well as our friends in New Orleans, who we've covered to death on this show. One of the other fascinating influences, though, another like big influence that kept coming up when I was doing research was Winter, which is all over this record. If you listen to some of the, the Winter output, maybe Into Darkness, it's like just basically this whole riff. It's very minimalist. It's just kind of very rhythmic, kind of pummeling riffs. And the vocal styling is very similar to what ultimately comes out on the Grief album.
And they're just from a couple miles away too.
New York City, baby. So
they're not too far off.
Check out that record. It's also very bleak and also very heavy.
It's a very dry production. There's very little overdubs to it. It's just 4 or 5 instruments playing. It is, when you listen to it, it's like there's little to no production on it. This album has more production than that thing does. It's just, here's the 5 instruments, here's the vocals, like it's done. Like you hear it. It's actually, there's so much silence in between some of the songs, like it's crisp almost. Like you can get that. It's heavy. It's heavy as shit. It's definitely early wave kind of death doom almost. You're right. Very rhythmic. I listened to that probably for the first time about 4 years ago. I went on a big, like, Decibel releases these great issues that compile like the top 100 of these subgenres, and that was on there. And I just went from 1 to 100 and listened to everything I'd never listened to before. And I remember that being one of my favorites.
I would say, well, and they're a big piece of this puzzle too, because I think we have to remember that, we kind of live in a time where we're spoiled and we kind of know the weight of these bands. We understand like the influence of these bands. But at the time, this was not a popular form of heavy music. No one gave a shit about this at all. Nobody was listening like, oh, I listen to Winter's Into Darkness all the time. Like that band has certainly become more of a cult following within, the past handful of years. But Grief as well. I think at the time, no one was really paying attention to Grief until now, like maybe more so now, where it's like, okay, yes, they were onto something. I can see the influence of this. There is like something to this sound, but at the time, like sludge and doom was like certainly not very popular in the Northeast, especially. Like there was no scene really for this style of music. And as we'll learn, I mean, the band almost would have to go out of their own hometown to get shows and actually have people come out. Cause like, I mean, they were pretty quick to get out there and start performing, but they would be like, there'd be like 10 people at a show maybe. And that was pretty much it.
This was like the same city that at the same time early Converge was happening. So there's like a pretty big difference between like Caring and Killing era Converge and this band.
Right. They say that too. Like this was far more of a hardcore city and maybe even like a death metal city than it was a sludge or doom thing, which is funny too, because when I would look at stuff about Disrupt, they were like, yeah, no one actually really liked us that much either. So I don't really know. They just couldn't really find their niche, unfortunately. But, over time, I think later, maybe even after the band kind of breaks up, I think they have found some love amongst like this age of the internet where, genres and like all these different kind of subgenres really are, lauded. And I think they're definitely kind of like the big one now, thus, Decibel Hall of Fame. But my favorite thing about this kind of early days reading up on it is like, how did the Grief sound form? And it is just a whole lot of weed and a whole lot of other shenanigans.
We were really big fans of Saint Vitus. All of us were big Saint Vitus freaks. That's a great band. Saint Vitus is a really fucking great band. And we could probably dedicate an episode in the future to a record of theirs. Because the Born Too Late record, like weirdly enough, talking about like bands that didn't really catch on when they came out. Born Too Late, Saint Vitus was released by SST, in the late 80s. And you had to be in the right kind of area to pick up on Saint Vitus, right? Like, I think Wino's originally from like Maryland or Baltimore or something like that. So his legend is kind of all through that area. And, he's singing with Vitus. You had, I believe the original Vitus vocalist was Scott Reeder. I think that's who that was. And it's wild to think how these guys might have got into St. Vitus with like, was it tape trading? Probably so. A buddy has a copy of a copy of a copy. May have even traveled out of state. But then again, like I know these guys are coming from more of a punk and hardcore background for sure. I know Ian Mackay always championed like the Obsessed and bands like that. He was very forward in introducing different people to different styles of music. So maybe there's a connection there. That would be the interesting thing I would like to find is how these guys found that. Obviously, Black Sabbath shows up. Like, how did these guys find Trouble? Like,
yeah,
that's a Midwest band.
Yeah, I mean, I would say St. Vitus, I think you're pretty much nailing it on the head. I mean, St. Vitus has that punk connection, obviously, with SST. I mean, these guys all have like their Crust punk background. They're going to be listening to stuff like that. But yeah, it is interesting there where like a band like Trouble comes in, or like, something as like abrasive as the Melvins or something like that, those early records. But
yeah, My War's B-side.
Yeah, I mean, the combination there alone, the Melvins and the My War B-side, essentially kind of kickstarting sludge metal in New Orleans. But I will say, I mean, not even just like being influenced by St. Vitus, there's like definitely some correlations with this band too, in that, they weren't really going on tour with bands that were sludge metal. They were going on tour with hardcore and power violence bands because of their connection through Disrupt. I mean, playing shows with like Drop Dead, out of Rhode Island. I mean, the one band for sure, Extreme Noise Terror, which I think is an English band that they had connections with through Disrupt. Actually, Disrupt would always get shit talked because they basically, a lot of people would say that they sounded like a ripoff Extreme Noise Terror. So they were always getting shit on basically in that scene through that, but they were friends. I think they almost put out a split together, if I read correctly, but one of like the early Grief tours, like on the West Coast, I believe was with Extreme Noise Terror.
In American Hardcore, the movie, those DC bands like Ian maybe talked about how when they would book a tour, they would like book a show in California by talking to a guy, and then 6 months later just show up in California and hope that the show still happens because like you just have to book the tour over the phone, and like you can't really call a person every week over long distance and be like, hey, is the show still happening? I can't even fucking imagine being in a hardcore band or like a D-beat band from England in the fucking 80s and just showing up to America just hoping that your shows still are fucking happening at the same venue or whatever.
It's pretty wild. Well, I mean, and also kind of jumping off from that like DIY kind of aspect. This band was like, it started in 91 and they pretty much like hit like full steam ahead. I mean, they certainly like kind of formulated their song through just all of the fucking personal grief and pot smoking that they had done so much. But I mean, they were pretty quick to start releasing stuff. Like 92, the Depression EP came out. They recorded maybe like early February of that year in a studio called Headroom, which still exists today. We'll get into that in a little while. But then they really like Terry released a lot of these like initial releases like on his own label, Grievance Records. So, you're just like, I want to do this band. I want to be slow. All of these other bands are doing it. I can do that. That's exactly what I'm kind of looking for. So I'm going to make it happen. I mean, I asked my friends in Disrupt to basically join this band I'm thinking about. I got a name, and then I'd basically start a label just to put it out myself. And I mean, he would print the covers at work. He would fold and number them by hand, and he did all of the mailing and long distance by the phone. I think I saw some posts. There's actually a lot of like people who will post like old flyers on Instagram and stuff like that. And some of the little inserts that came along with these releases, they were like coming soon, like I hate God, like blah, blah, blah. And I don't know if he was like doing like a distro kind of thing or if he was like intending to put out some I hate God shit, but there was like even that connection pretty early on with this band. So thought that was pretty cool. But some of the other research I did made it a little confusing because I don't think with the Decibel Hall of Fame article in mind, I think there are some fuzzy, hazy memories, like exactly like.
I wonder why.
Right. So on Metal Archives, it says
Dave's not here, man.
On Metal Archives, that EP, the Depression EP, is listed as the first thing. But if you kind of read through the Decibel Hall of Fame, it says that the Dismal EP is the debut EP, which he also says people call that Dismal. It should be the self-titled EP,
right? Because it just had the track on it,
right?
And that's happened. That's a very common thread amongst like different underground scenes. Like this untitled demo 7-inch, whatever comes out, they're like, oh yeah, the one with Who's It on it. So it's the Who's It EP.
It's like Frankenstein. The monster. It's like the monster Frankenstein.
Never heard of him.
Just put together. Yeah, it's just put together with different parts of different bands, and then it's the sum of the wholes, right?
No, I meant like people didn't know what to call the monster, they get what you're Frankenstein, saying. So they just called it Frankenstein over time.
There you go.
But did you know that Frankenstein was the doctor and not the monster?
That's Flubber too. People called it Flubber, but it's actually Dr. Flubber's monster.
Off the fucking rails.
Anyway, the Dismal EP, which may or may not be the debut EP that is also self-titled, also came out on Grievance Records. It was also recorded at Headroom. There also exists a Dismal compilation that was released in 93 through Common Cause Records, which is like a German label. But that compilation basically contains most of the material from the first 3 releases, with the exception of an instrumental from the Depression EP. So again, a little confusing, but it's all there.
Terry, he's got a theme going with the name like Grief and Dismal and the Depression EP and Grievance Records.
This motherfucker just had a thesaurus and he was just like, synonyms for grief.
He learned all of his dialogue and all of his like vernacular through like Edgar Allan Poe poems. Yeah. Just like that's it. Just purely did that. And in the tour van, they probably listened to the fucking Mamas and the Papas or some shit.
Speaking on the punk connection again, too, this band also did a lot of splits. And one of the splits they did was a very, very early split, a very, very early release with the band from Oakland, California, Dystopia. It's called Lifeless Sleep, I guess the songs that are featured on that. But, also kind of sludgy Dystopia, also very crusty. They had only previously released a demo and a split with Embittered, Dystopia had by this point. So it's kind of interesting. Like, again, there's that connection where it's like, here's another band who probably, I don't know if a lot of people heard about initially, but over time, there are definitely a lot of people who fuck with that band or are influenced by that. Jarhead Fertilizer, for instance, is like
these
very influenced.
These
by
guys definitely had a lot of Asuk t-shirts, I bet. Like I'm sure.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Well, there's some other unfavorable connections being in the Boston scene as well. AC. I don't know. Like there's some.
Oh, I mean it's
yeah.
I'm sure these poor bastards got on shows with like that band.
I think they had a member at one point later on, or maybe like a live member or something like that filling in.
That band had a lot of members, but the Asuk, that's always like the shirt. I see it like anytime there's a photo of like a Crust Bunk like show or something, someone's in an Asuk t-shirt or Asuk as it's kind of spelled. It's that band or Dystopia. There's a ton of Dystopia merch kind of in that, and I'm not really familiar with that world as much. I've listened to it a little bit. Dystopia, I've probably heard more from you two knuckleheads, or primarily you, throughout the years than anybody. But I am not entirely familiar with the crust punk world. I played a show or a festival with a bunch of crust punk bands at one point many years ago. It was at that house that Death Card used to practice at.
Oh,
and they had a festival there, and these crust punk bands pulled up in these 2 converted school buses and we're just filing out of there. And I remember going, "Where's the dog?
Was there a dog?
There it is." And so it's like wild. It's wild to think that, again, they're using their connections wisely. This makes sense. Push it. Use all of it. Use every connection you have, because in underground music, that's how it's done, especially in this era.
Not to touch too much on it, but Dystopia, they fuck you guys. Dystopia seems like a similar band in that they like this split came on like that band's own label that they released like all their stuff themselves. They had a similar kind of sound, at least to an extent. So it's like it's certainly all there, and I just thought that was I became more familiar with Dystopia with through Tank Crimes. They've been like they re-released some of their stuff over the past few years, so check it out. Cool shit. I mentioned that tour earlier with Extreme Noise Terror. They did that like in the summer of '93. All of these members are still in Disrupt. They basically go on a European tour around the fall of that year, and then they break up. So Disrupt is done. All of the energy any energy that they had in that band now shifts solely on Grief. So now they're just full steam ahead.
Which, judging by the music, is not much energy.
Just couldn't muster it up.
God, it's like watching Citizen Kane. It just fucking drags.
So you would think like, all right, band breaks up, now we can focus on this. However, 2 members of Grief now leave the band. Jay Styles, Pete Donovan, they're gone. But Randy, who plays bass, he also knew how to play drums. So now he shifts over on the kit. And then you have Rick Johnson, who Randy had apparently known for a few years prior to Grief or leading up to Grief. They had played on shows together. They were familiar with each other. Basically asked him to come into the fold. It seemed like they were pretty stretched thin. They were looking for a drummer because they had a deal now. They got a deal with Century Media before they had a drummer locked down. Apparently, I mentioned that I Hate God connection. I Hate God was in New York City. The Grief guys go down to hang out with them. There's a person from Century Media on the tour who's like roadieing for I Hate God and tells them, yeah, the label's like pretty interested in you guys. Maybe we'll talk on the phone or something. Like, yeah, whatever. Like no one, we barely get enough people at our shows. Like who the fuck is like interested in us? I Hate God. They're done with the tour. This woman calls them up. They get all the contract stuff, basically ironed out, and that's it. They have a deal with Century Media for their debut record, and it didn't seem like anyone else was really interested at the time. So they're like, "Why the fuck not? Let's just go for it."
Yeah, why not? Why the fuck not?
I mean, at that point, I'm sure a lot of it, in hearing some of the stories about the earlier doings of Century Media Records, which at present date, like Century Media is one of the biggest metal labels of all time. It's up there with like a Nuclear Blast, or it's up there with like a Nuclear Blast, a Metal Blade, et cetera, et cetera. But back then it was still loosely figuring shit out. I mean, this is 94. Death metal is starting to crest and go on the downswing. Black metal is arguably at its peak. Melodic death metal, like the Gothenburg stuff, hasn't quite just hit yet. And, you know, you sign a band like I Hate God and you put out you're putting out their catalog and you go, okay, these guys have generated a little bit of kind of hype and attention via the Pantera connection. So let's find, we have this band from Boston that sounds eerily the same, eerily similar. You know, maybe we can do that. If they've got 10 people to show now, maybe if we sign them and they get on like one of these crazy big tours or something, we can push them. They can have 50 people to show, 100 people to show, that sort of thing. Maybe these guys are fucking crazy, like their New Orleans counterparts. You know, that sort of thing. Like, labels back then were still always kind of shooting, in which they probably still are, but always shooting to find the next big thing. They were shooting to go, oh God, what's going to give us those rock and roll dreams? What's going to give us the house in the hills with the Coke table and all that? And I don't know if that's what was going on in Century Media, but a lot of labels kind of functioned the same way back then. But investing some money and the time blindly into a band like this that's as aggressive and heavy and just terrifying, to a better word, and just going like, sure, we'll sign them. Yeah, they're going to make us money somehow. Come on. Like,
yeah, I mean, they had put out Take Is Needed for Pain like the previous year. So, I mean, like, they were definitely familiar with it. But yeah,
it kind of, as you will probably talk about after we get through, like, running through the songs, it kind of led a little bit to their breakup. But people in bands get completely fucked over by like getting like the cash advance on an album, and then they'll like break up or spend the money on bullshit. But it sounds like they didn't get much money from Century Media, so they could have come out a lot more worse for wear than they did. Yeah, like they could have gotten money for their second album and then blown it on nothing and owed Century Media a lot of money, but they just kind of didn't give a fuck about the band, really, is what it sounds like.
What's the Sleep Dope Smoker story? I mean, there's a lot of them, but they got the advance and they got like really nice gear. They got new guitars, new basses, and then they spent the bulk of it on like fucking weed.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I mean, that's
the Sabbath thing too.
Yeah. That's what I was about to say. Yeah. Isn't that like volume 4 or whatever?
With the cocaine, baby.
Yeah.
And what's his face's mansion? The dude who, from Foxcatcher.
Oh yeah.
The Foxcatcher. Yeah, they were staying in
Steve
his
Carell.
mansion. Yeah, Steve Carell. That's awesome. But yeah, so yeah, we'll find a little later that, and as with many bands who have, you know, I hate God specifically, as we touched on with our Dope Sick episode, there might have been a little bit of contention with the label and the band, which so uncommon. But
no, the bands don't do that now either at all.
So this is essentially a 4-piece now. We have Jeff Hayward, who was the vocalist, is now on guitar as well. 22 years old at the time. Rick Johnson, who we mentioned came into the fold on drums. He was an ex-member of Afterbirth. He was also getting married around this time and about to become a father. So there's a little bit of that going on in the background. I mentioned Randy, who was initially attempted to do vocals, became the bass player, and may also switch instruments again a little later on. And then, of course, the kind of leader of this group is Terry, so on guitar. The lyrical themes, as we have touched on a lot, depression, melancholy, mental problems, drug use, it's all there. What was most surprising, though, was this was a quote from Randy that a lot of the lyrics were actually written by our old drummer, Pete, who apparently was just going through it, which is very present, which is very apparent on this record as well. So I didn't know. I didn't find too much information on Pete. I hope Pete's okay. I hope Pete's doing good.
Pete had a really hard time beating the original Mortal Kombat, and he just couldn't get past Shang Tsung. Like, just had the fucking hardest time with it, and it just led to this outpouring of these negative and just depressing emotions. And he's like, I gotta write a record, and such as has, and to this day, it's rumored that he still hasn't beat the first Mortal Kombat.
Damn.
He
can't get past the bonus level where you try to break the
stones,
cinder blocks or whatever.
I was always a Mortal Kombat 3 Ultimate kind of guy.
Was that even out by this time? I don't know. Anyway,
the first one was.
This isn't a fucking video game podcast.
So they have a deal with Century Media. They booked some time out. They're going to be recording this debut LP August 6th and 7th, and then 18th through the 21st in August of 1994. They go to record this at a studio called The Lanes in Allston, Massachusetts, which is called The Lanes because it is quite literally an old bowling alley that was converted into a recording studio. Randy mentioned that you could still see the bowling alley floor in the studio as well. This was also in the basement of a Greek restaurant. So it's just
smells.
Like all sorts of things. But Terry mentioned this was literally the best recording situation any of us had been in.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds
fucking
great.
hammer out a take, go upstairs and get a fucking gyro and fries, come back downstairs.
Oh my God. Get a chicken plate. Oh my, I would die. We gotta take a break. I'm hungry. They by all accounts though, they said a lot of the time they spent here was like fun. I mean, for it being a bleak, heavy record, they were just like, yeah, it was just a bunch of goofball friends hanging out together, smoking weed and just dicking around basically for a handful of days playing heavy music.
Yeah, well, it's because the sad dude wasn't in the band anymore.
Man, I'm telling you guys, like he sat at home. He had that fucking Super NES in front of him.
Here we go. What are we
like
doing?
Just fucking losing his mind, just like throwing controllers around, screaming out the window. I mean, just had a hard time. The game came out like 2 years before, and he still couldn't fucking beat it.
He had never heard of Nintendo Power. It could have helped him out.
I can't help it. I didn't catch all the lyrics, but there was one song that I just kept honing in the lyrics to, and it I don't know, maybe it's Ruined or Fed Up, but it's like I wish I could start over, but instead all my friends are assholes, and I can't help but imagine that the people in the band that are friends with the dude that wrote the lyrics are just like, was he talking about us? were we his friends that were assholes?
That's like, oh man, what was the fucking the Thou record where we thought like, oh yeah, this is Brian, are you calling us out, dude? What's going on?
Right, yeah.
They wanted, so this was this album was of course recorded to 2-inch tape at the time. I think there are some digital editing credits on this, but I'm sure it's very, very early into that whole world. But they wanted to record their follow-up record at the same studio, Miserably Ever After. However,
good name.
The Greek restaurant burned down and took the studio with it. So no more.
That would have been the best smelling like building fire that anyone's ever dealt with. Just like the seasonings and everything just fucking going up, like covering up all the 2-inch tape burning.
Just pouring tzatziki sauce all over the fire, trying to put it out.
It's like when they took the Smoky Bones 3-4 times. That's Smoky Bones in Bowling Green.
I've been driving past that place for years, and when they put the like ornate fire pits in front of it, it's like, you guys
what are we doing?
You guys are spitting in the face of God.
Tempting God right now. He is just waiting for the right time.
This is a very Bowling Green specific story and joke. So sorry to anybody listening to that. But the album engineered and co-produced by Bill T. Miller, who basically recorded everything the band had done at this point. He recorded with AC. He recorded with Drop Dead, Disrupt as well. So I'm sure that was the connection there. I believe he also recorded the Discordant Axis album, Joho. I forget how to pronounce it.
Oh, Yoo-Hoo.
Yeah, Yoo-Hoo. Yeah.
Yoo-Hoo.
The one before the
one
Inalienable
before
Dreamless.
Yeah.
Which, if we remember from that episode, was a very trying recording session that resulted in the band going on like a hiatus before that.
Man, Bill is 1 for 1 here, man.
Yeah.
You talk about all these bands that are like having internal issues. It's like Bill's always the common thread.
It's a good thing there wasn't Yelp at the time.
Fuck.
I didn't get a chance to read it, but he did the big Drop Dead record, which also got a Hall of Fame treatment from Decibel. So I don't know too much about the recording process, but I definitely got to read it and see. But Bill T. Miller, he has worked with the band quite a bit at this point. With it being on a probably a very small budget, I mean, they breezed through this album pretty quickly, obviously.
Yes, they did.
First day of tracking, 2 guitar tracks, drums, bass, live, all at the same time. We didn't track everything separately, said Hayward. In one afternoon into the evening, we tracked 7 of the 8 songs, completely done, all guitars, drums, bass. They tried to do the whole thing with the last song being the title track. But they had exhausted themselves completely. They were also a bit intoxicated as well. So Bill was like, let's come back to this. They got
lost in the sauce.
They got lost in the sauce.
What's the quote in the Decibel thing? I think you guys have hit your prime.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple hours ago.
So with that, they got refreshed. They came back like the next day and they nailed it on the first take. So they did the rest of the vocals in that afternoon.
Let's go get some Greek food.
Yeah, be done.
Hell yeah.
They basically finished it the rest of that day. I think they did the vocals that afternoon. And then maybe the next few days were like basically mixing the record. So basically breezed through it. My other favorite part of this record, before we get into the songs, the artwork is incredible. All of this band's artwork is like so sick. It kind of reminds me of Altars of Madness.
That's funny.
With all of the little cartoons and shit, but is very, very fun. Any thoughts on that?
There's some guys with like studded bracelets and battle vest on that would shit their pants upon hearing us talk about this thing or that album this way. I think this is great. It looks very much like it's a kind of it's not dated. I don't want to say that, but it definitely looks like a product of the times. I think it's really great, as you said, with like the kind of stretched faces, all of this. It's very demonic, but in a very playful way. Kind of has like a Barney color scheme to it that I saw immediately and was like, oh, it's greens, it's purples, it's grays, it's whites. I really like this a lot. I really like the artwork a lot on this record.
Definitely looks like if a child drew a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
If you just described a nightmare to a child and had them draw it out, it's probably...
Yeah. It evokes emotions for sure. I mean, it represents what you get into lyrically and sound wise on the album. Just very, I don't know, cavernous and mucky kind of.
There's a Treehouse of Horrors episode where Bart opens up a book and all these ghost faces come out just like that.
Yeah.
Oh, and he closes the book and you hear him scream, ow. Oh, ow.
The artwork is done by Eric Harrison, who was basically a friend of the band for a while, or at least like I think Eric knew Jeff since they were teenagers. He has basically provided artwork for bands like 16. Yep. Swindle never told us. Abscess and a bunch of Grief records. I mean, he did the artwork for the split with Suppression, Soylent Green. Yeah, I forgot to mention that they did a split with Soylent Green a little later on. They did a split with Corrupted, and then their sophomore record, Miserably Ever After, in '96. But Eric is also a future member of this band. He would eventually play bass, which we'll get into a little later. But you guys ready? You guys ready to get into the record now that we've just really covered the backstory on this band to death?
Yeah, I have so much to say about
This Earthworm Jim record.
More video game shit, man. This is a video game guy.
I just
go
for
podcast
it.
now.
I just go for it. It's there.
I did want to say that I'm actually impressed. Most of this album is almost the exact same BPM all the way throughout. I'm very impressed. The drummer especially was more and more fucked up as the album is recorded, but just stayed at the same BPM.
Motherfucker was falling off that
super
stool.
Impressive.
He was playing drums from the back of the room. He was off the stool. Just like, hey, hit the snare. Clack.
That's true. You would think, it being slower music that, oh yeah, it's not gonna be difficult. We don't have to play any intricate shit.
It's harder to play slower.
I agree. I think
it's harder to play slower.
When you're buzzed, it is especially hard to fucking play slow. I
None
know
of
that
us
with
would know.
some confidence.
So, Rick, that's off to you, buddy. Absolutely. All right. So, getting into the record, we start with, as we mentioned before, a damn near 10-minute opening track, Earthworm. What are your thoughts when you turn it on? What are we thinking?
Surprisingly, this song was slow. I got lost in the guitar part for this song specifically. I was like, I'm not sure where the riff is restarting during this song. Like, I don't know what chord 1 is.
Yeah. But I would say that's a lot of this record too. Not that that I couldn't figure out, but I think you kind of get into a trance-like thing with it because it is just kind of that repetition that is beating you over the skull.
It borderlines on drone almost. Yeah. Like the way it's paced, the way it's written, and learning that the band actually played these songs a little bit faster at one point and they progressively got slower, which is hilarious to think about. Because usually it's the opposite end. You learn the songs, you can play them like they're nothing. And they got slower and they would listen back to those early recordings and go, oh, these are mid-tempo tracks. So I mentioned this kind of earlier. If they were played mid-tempo, you'd probably be able to hear kind of what we consider a traditional riff, right? And since it's slower, and I'm assuming it's 20 to 30 BPM slower, that they're playing these things and it's where does the riff begin? Where does it end? And that's always been an attribute for me for doom adjacent music, drone music, right? It's not necessarily about the riff. It's about the emotional impact and that kind of nervous energy you get of fuck, what's going down? What's going to hit? What's coming out of the hole in the ground and how slow is it going to move?
Yeah. I mean, from the moment we begin the album, and a lot of songs start like this too, where it's just, you're met with feedback instantly. Mm-hmm. Almost every song on this album starts with feedback, if not all of them. And then basically you're just kind of I think it counts in, and then it's just huge guitars. And a lot of what, like you said, because it is so slowed down, it's sparse, but they are squeezing out, wringing out whatever bit of juice they can get, bending the note, letting it ring out, letting it sustain. They are just every bit of whatever they can get out of those chords, out of that riff, they are just squeezing it.
I could feel it in my plums.
They're playing so slow, it feeds back between the chords.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
It does. What I do like about the mix on this is you can actually hear every instrument.
Yeah,
I really enjoy the mix. It's mixed how it should be. I could argue and say the bass could be a little bit louder because it always fucking can, but it's mixed really well. The guitars aren't overly tracked. There's 2, which, gives the room for the drums to pop out, the vocals to stick out, the bass to kind of cut through. The bass is extremely distorted, so it locks in really well with the sound of the guitars. It's still a very punk rock kind of setup, right? It's very bare bones. There's a little bit of like recording stuff going on. Like there's some phaser kind of buried in there on the record. But I love the mix on this a lot. Swindle and I were kind of talking off air, I think a couple days ago, and it's got a very Black Flag vibe to it, at least to my feeling. Like I go, man, this sounds like if Black Flag went the way I wanted them to go after My War, like having a very young, upset Henry Rollins screaming over this stuff wouldn't sound too foreign. Like this is very much in that vein to me. And Earthworm like would be to me like it's not too far off from Damaged.
Jeff, speaking of screaming in vocals, like Jeff vocals, like when you're introduced to them from this track, he sounds like he is just like shredding his vocal cords trying to put it out. And then there's even, just when you think he like can't take any more, there's like a part maybe later in the song where they become more strained and like higher pitched, if you could call them that. They're just like he just leans even further into it. And I'm like, God, dude, you're like the youngest person in the band. You're gonna be fucked. What are you doing?
7 songs, 1 day. That's what you get. Yeah. That's why you get the sound the way you do. And they were probably having more fun. Let's face it. It happens. That's why a couple of the songs at the end of the record are a little bit quicker.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Some of them.
Just a little bit.
I do like it because it's not all just that, pummeling riff. There's a little bit of like a lead line, like a little guitar melody that's kind of playing over the main riff.
Yeah.
But they also do, I like to call them the treble grooves, the kind of like classic sounding,
yes,
Sabbath-y kind of like bouncy riffs.
Oh God. It's like, I hate to use another New Orleans reference, but it's like the NOLA thing, right? I mean, there's so much on that record that sounds like Trouble. Yeah. And it is. There's kind of a trouble boogie, a trouble kind of groove to that 100%. Yeah, it's all over this record.
Yeah, definitely. There's like those, Trouble definitely known for using those like guitar harmonies as well, which this band is certainly prone to do. So I like that. I'm maybe not as familiar with St. Vitus, but I'm certainly more familiar with Trouble. So that is what stuck out to me personally.
Like 2/3 into the song, there's like the big metal pauses with feedback during the pause. I really like that.
It's really cool to hear a band do that. Obviously, like modern production is a little bit different, right? It's kind of, you don't necessarily want that feedback, especially when it's a modern sounding record sometimes. But hearing a band like this that goes, no, we want that in between. We want it to sound like this. We want that atmosphere, because that's really what it is. Feedback is atmosphere. It's not, we've all seen bands that you go and watch and they have feedback and it's ultimately just, oh, fuck, they don't know what they're doing. But there's also been bands we've went and seen that it's like, oh, no, that's meant to be there. That is there for a fucking reason.
I would say that there is an aspect of that. And I also feel like there are some aspects of this record where they don't know what they're doing.
Oh, but that's great.
Yes. It makes for a very, I think these are guys who are very clearly younger. I mean, they've been playing in bands for a while, but, and maybe they do. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I can go fuck myself. But I feel like some of the tones are very funny because they're just like, that is filthy. That is a filthy, disgusting bass tone. Before we get into that in the next song, I do want to say the lyrics are just like, if I had heard this as a, maybe a sad 19-year-old, that would have been right up my alley. I mean, right out of the gate, I feel dejected, a lonely future of failure, and I am growing very angry. I slither in the dirt and mud because that's where I belong. Just feeling it. Whether it's Terry or Pete, whoever wrote this song in particular, they were going through it for sure. And
I think it's Hank Rollins that has the line about Wino's guitar playing. It sounds like a man getting angry really slow. Like getting progressively angry. I think that's the line. I could be off, or it's like, it sounds like a man who is like getting up from getting hit really slowly and he's going to just fuck you up.
I think that's the perfect point to bring up our next song. Hate Grows Stronger, which again is another 8.5. It's like an 8.5 minute track like featuring feedback. One other thing they do really good too, that there is a bit of a formula to this record, I think, obviously with the feedback, but then there's like some parts that are like, it's the singled out guitar playing the, like maybe like the one finger kind of riff. And then maybe like mid riff, it like punches, everyone kind of punches in. It's like the whole fucking band. Really heavy song for sure.
Do you think they were watching Return of the Jedi on this one?
Yes.
let the hate flow through you.
I was talking about the tone earlier. The bass on this, there's a part maybe around the 2-minute mark where it kind of cuts out and singles out on the bass. And
I know that part.
Oh, it's disgusting, like how that tone is. And that's why I'm like, who thought to do this? But they probably heard it with like, perfect. This is exactly what, this will fit it.
I think the Winter record's like that. Like there's a really gross, kind of overdriven bass tone on that record, and it cuts through pretty well. And I think there's probably points in that record where it's just like, because I think that's a one guitar band as well, where it just cuts through at certain points.
They're a 3-piece, yeah.
Oh, yeah, they're a 3-piece. And it's, so like, yeah, that sounds very reminiscent of it. And that's also kind of like these guys have been playing together a long time, but it's still very clear that it's very off the cuff kind of writing. It's not, extremely meticulous, but they're going through going, oh, it'd be really cool if there was like the guitars drop out here and the bass builds this part and then you go on next. And I mean, they're pumping these songs out as quick as they did. So I'm sure, it's like, hey, we're a 3-piece basically. Let's just have the bass kind of fill out this part. And it's really nasty sounding. It's gross.
I think much of the song is in 15, 16.
They don't know that.
Really? The 16th notes are the song. All these songs are so fucking slow, like 19 or 20 beats per minute. So like what you think is the beat is really the 16th note. And I think that it's 15, 16.
Well, comment below.
They didn't do on purpose. I'm sure they weren't like, let's write a 15, 16 part.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of this album is like the rhythms are just wonky. It's just weird rhythmically. Like the guitar parts will like change chords in a weird spot, just like right before the one or something. Yeah, it's just strange.
That's what you get when you try to take songs that are probably mid-tempo and bring them down slower. So there's like that kind of disjointed thing of like, oh shit, I gotta actually teach myself how to play a song I wrote slower. Like that's a nightmare. I've done it. I've sat down and like played things that I've written just to go, oh, I wonder what it sounds like slower. It's terrifying. Having to show anybody how to play something and show them really slow. How many times have we've said, oh shit, I fucked that up because it just doesn't sound the same. So I get it. Hey, and who knows? Maybe we're wrong, and maybe these guys are all like, King Crimson, able to just like pull these odd meters off the top of their fucking head like nobody's business. Or maybe it leans the other way and it's very much like in Sleep territory where they're like,
World of Hurt.
Favorite track on the record?
Is it because it's 5 minutes?
No, I suspected you guys of saying that too. It's because it sounds like Cathedral mashed with I Hate God.
Interesting.
And like Cathedral's got these big grandiose like harmonies that are really split apart and sparse. And then it's got that I Hate God boogie at the end of it.
Yeah. I took note of that.
Yep. Just does it in like that. Once that thing kicks in, my ears just perked up.
It's probably the most upbeat part by this point of the record. Upbeat. But yeah, that kind of like, for sure, Sabbath-y, I Hate God, whatever kind of chromatic boogie riff.
Love this track. I love it. The riffs, how it's a blending of that very ethereal kind of doom sound. And that's like traditional doom to me. That's like the first Cathedral record's called Forest of Equilibrium. It sounds like stuff off of that. And it sounds like, what we know as I Hate God now. And it's that boogie, that kind of Sabbathian boogie. I love it. I love this track for its simplicity, for it kind of sounding a little bit different than the rest of the tracks on the record. But I love it. And maybe that's because it is a shorter song. I don't know. That didn't really dawn on me. But sometimes, like Swindle said with Earthworm, you kind of get lost a little bit in it from time to time. It is that type of music. It verges on drone to where it's almost just there. And it's this huge negative wall just hitting you. But this one like pops out, to me at least.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, to go from like two pretty lengthy songs back to back that are just like these slow dirges, and then have this where, like you mentioned earlier, Dylan, it's like, this certainly leans more in Doom territory because there aren't a lot of those faster parts. But when they do, they're effective, they pop out like you have kind of at the end of this song. So our next song, have you ever just hated a motherfucker so much that you just like wrote a song, you just singled that guy? Whoever was on the other end of this, like this is a scathing poetry right here.
We've all heard throughout our life, there's no room to hate anybody, right? Why waste the emotion? Why waste the effort? We're men, give or take. We're only going to be around for 70 or so years. I'm 34, Swindle's 35. We're halfway there. I am firmly and completely okay with giving up a slight ounce of my energy of hating somebody. It's okay. Just do it. It'll make things better. Why forgive somebody that was a complete sack of monkey shit if it doesn't affect your day to day? Why? Why not do that? There's a human being to this day that I can hate all day long. It is the player hater's ball. Hate. I gotta go home and put water in Buck Nasty's mama's dish. It is that level of hate, and I support this fucking track, and that's how it's gonna be.
I think this can be very therapeutic. At least they're putting it out on wax. Just get it out here. Get it out in the world, I guess. We're introduced to this song through feedback and that disgusting bass tone again. I think the song, and it's like that for like a good 30 seconds. Like that's all it is. It's just feedback.
Just a drop in a bucket.
And then it's the rest of the band kicks in, but it's like mostly two chords for the most part. Like
no,
it's mostly two chords. And then there's like that, if you could call it a turnaround, there's that part where when it starts over, but it is mainly just those two chords throughout that whole main riff.
It's just like, it's that turnaround you're talking about. It's just a quick little pickup, just like that. It's like, just
there's some other stuff. Yeah, there's some other things going on.
It's upbeat we're back to it. This is the track in particular that really gave me the Black Flag vibes in particular. It's after listening to this track and then listening to the record as many times as I did, and really digging it, it's like, oh shit, this could have been released on like SST in the mid 80s. At that point, it would have sounded different, but like it's a wild sounding record. It's very aggressive. It's rooted in punk rock as much as it, is a metal record. Like it's very punk rock rooted, as we know. And this track with its direct, target, its direct title, like is very, I'm not going to hear it, is very, depression, that sort of thing. Just that direct, that's a very punk rock thing to me.
I love the part at the end of the song that's like just like 4 feedback hits, like 16th notes. I really like that part at the end of the song.
They're kind of playing around with a bit of like the panning, I think, too. There's like some shit that's like cutting in and out.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of heard like maybe on the left side, there's like it's very noticeable where like the guitars kind of cut out, and then there's like there's like a variety of distorted instruments on this, but yeah, it's like over here on the left side, and then it all comes in again. So it's kind of like choppy a little bit, I think, but I like the song a lot. I think this might be one of their more well-known tracks for sure, but simply put, just I hate you. We go into track 5 with a very interesting sample. I don't know what it's from. Is it Bud Dwyer?
Is this Bud Dwyer?
No, I don't think so.
I thought this was right before he like just offed himself.
I don't think so, because I don't think that was like he was like, it sounds very weird to be like a political press hearing where somebody was like, I mean, I know this is what he ultimately did, but it's like, I could blow my brains out. And then there's like, I'm controlled by the supernatural, but I'm here in the real world or something like that. I have no idea what that is from, but it's unsettling. So it's effective.
They really started off other than the sample, they really started this song in a different direction because they were like playing a lot faster at the beginning.
Right.
Shortest song on the record.
I think this is one of my favorite riffs on the record because it just like doesn't let up at all. And like I put your head through a wall kind of riff. This is how it feels to me. Just right through a damn wall, right through the drywall.
It's like one part for the whole thing, right?
Yep. Yeah. It's the shortest song on the record too. So it's like 4.5 minutes. The lyrics, I couldn't tell, I'm sure a lot of these are personal, but I mean, the lyrics were just like, like so bleak. It basically is just like about, or to what I interpret as like self-medicating your anger through drugs and alcohol. And what even made it more that make me think that it was personal was that it like mentions an actual like psychiatric hospital in Boston. I was like, this seems more of like a point of view somebody may have experienced. That's very unfortunate, but feeds right into the next song. Fed Up.
God, great. Another great title. Definitely in vein of I Hate You. Like, just again, like I said, I don't want to hear it. Just that kind of very direct nature of these titles.
This was a song that I like wrote the winter influence on because it is very slow. It's very minimal. It's sparse and it's just a ton of sustain. Like I was like, okay, I could see where a band like that would influence the songwriting of a track like Fed Up.
This is the song. Sometimes I wish I could start over and have another chance.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be happy. I used to have friends. Now I have all these three fucking assholes, and I'm sick of their shit too.
I miss the comfort in being sad.
This is the one I was referencing at the beginning. Like, do you think we're the three assholes?
Yeah. This is how you feel about us.
It's
right.
This album, and especially the winter influence on this, makes me think back to our Thor's Hammer episode. With like the styling of the music, it's very doom, drone influenced doom or doom influenced drone, what you want to call it. And some of the maybe more upbeat aspects of it would be kind of catered to that sludge territory. But the further we get into this record, in which we don't have a ton left in it, time wise we do, but track wise we don't. It just falls into that like huge cavernous kind of sound, right? This is definitely what I would almost call proto doom in a weird way, like proto death doom.
I like that you said Thor's Hammer because, like, again, I think there's a lot of correlations outside of just like young people trying to figure it out in the studio. I mean, that record, that production, I mean, you can hear a lot of things on it. You can hear the strings just rattling off of the neck on that bass and those guitars. And I mean, very short-lived project, obviously 6 weeks, but now have found like kind of this cult following. Whereas, Grief certainly existed for a lot longer, also have kind of this like resurgence and like they're getting, their flowers, I guess, finally within these past few years. But I would agree with that. I also, again, I just wanted to just some of the playing around with some of the feedback here. There's like feedback that cuts in the middle of the song this time, not in the beginning. Crazy. But the bass, you kind of mentioned like the phaser. There's like
it's on this track.
Yeah, on this track for sure.
It's subtle.
Yes.
It's almost, which leads me to believe it might have been a studio effect as opposed to like a stomp box or something, because it is so subtle and it just kind of like is there. Like it was almost like, hey, this seems kind of cool. Let's put it there, as opposed to I want phaser on this bass tone right now. And it's cool. Like there's just a little bit of editing on the record, probably some post-production stuff like that just kind of adds a weird effect to the record that sounds cool.
Stricken, again, more feedback. This one really like kind of punches you in the chops when it hits. It's probably my other favorite riff on the record because it just, I don't know, it just has like a world coming to an end type of like weight to it. But I don't know, do you guys have any thoughts on this song? Did you guys made any comments?
I like that this song started at a different tempo than the rest of the album. It started a lot faster, and then they like just went into the doom part after the hot open.
This is the track I probably don't have the best memory of, just because the closing track is right after it.
Right.
The track that came before it, with doom and drone like this, sometimes it's really hard for me to grasp a lot of it because I do kind of fall into the category of, okay, kind of where's the riff? Where does it start? Where does it end? Where's it at? Like, I like doom in smaller doses than maybe I do like stoner and sludge and even some of the Death Dune stuff I've listened to throughout the years. I kind of take it as a sonically heavy thing. It kind of feels more as like, I need something to emphasize the feeling I'm having right now. Because I will typically listen to a lot of these when we're prepping for them first thing in the morning with a cup of coffee. So like the blending between what is real and what is make believe at that point. So when the coffee kicks in, like my brain will start firing. But right before that, it's just evoking this feeling of, I just want to crawl back in. I just want to get back in that bed. It's warm. It caresses me. God, this is heavy. And there's the caffeine. We're kicking it.
There it is. Speaking of heavy and slow, the title track, Come to Grief, another 8-minute long song to end the album. Very percussive rhythm style as far as guitars go, which you've heard through the whole fucking record. This is very trance-like. It's just so slow, and it's easy to get kind of like lost in the groove of this. It does pick up a little bit at times. There's kind of like that Sabbath vibe as well. Sabbath, Trouble, whatever. But the one thing that I definitely noted with this song that I love, Dylan says this all the time, you got to bend that fucking note. The way they, like, it's certainly all over this record, but the way they kind of do it on this song in particular was like so noticeable. And I kind of had that like same feeling, like, oh, damn. The way they bend that note was so good.
The times that they like got fast it's kind of like they were like trying to fuck with people. They were like, let's play fast for like
2 seconds,
2 bars.
Yeah.
And then let's go back to the fucking slow part. And then I, in our group chat the other day, I was like, they do the fast part like in the middle of the song or near the end of the song, and they like start a guitar solo.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you think there's a solo? Fuck that. No. Hell no. We are not doing that shit. And then they just like go back to the doom part.
Do you think they were sitting around after they tracked the song? Because it was the next day, right? They were fresh, they were awake, sober. Do you think that they were sitting there going, do you think that one's too fast? Do you think we need to dial it back? And like Bill is probably in the other room going like, fucking track it.
Please.
God, I aged a year in 2 days.
Yeah. So all that, culminating in 54 minutes, 32 seconds, they put it out, and thus you have Come to Grief. So, I couldn't find much on the touring after this record. Obviously, we kind of mentioned earlier that this band not entirely well received within their own hometown, so they would often have to like go out. If they went out, they played in California, like we mentioned. They would have a pretty good crowd to follow them. They were pretty close with power violence bands and hardcore bands, like we mentioned. But the main thing after this record that happened was they basically got dropped from Century Media, or they got out of their contract because this was not a band that was promoted well by the label. There was a story of Grief being at Milwaukee Metal Fest, and one of the representatives, or maybe the owner of the label, was at Milwaukee Metal Fest for a different band on the label, and somebody walked up and be like, "Hey, can we have like a check or something? Because we are roughing it. Like we are starving. Can we do something?" He's like, I just can't do that. Oh, like you're patting yourself. Like,
I would not be surprised if when the person from Grief turned around and walked away, the person from the label was like, "What band was that guy in?"
Yeah,
like,
right.
Who the fuck was that?
Couldn't even give him like a voucher for some peanuts or something like that. But yeah, they were just not promoting this band very well. And even, Terry had claimed that in an article in an interview that I read that some people weren't getting orders for the record. I don't know if there's any validity to that, but that's what he said.
What's the black metal band from Chicago that I won't say the name?
Oh, yeah. Sure.
Yep.
But that's that band. This is the label. This is the label is apparently
Century Media, the label that still exists.
Right. That according to Terry, that's what he said. He claimed that people had said that they were not getting their orders for the label. Allegedly. So
no lawsuits here.
They had the next record, Miserably Ever After, written within a year, and they approached Century Media like, "Hey, we're ready to go." They had signed a multi-record deal with Century Media, but the label kept pushing it off to the point with that they were like, "Well, if you're not going to put it out, at least let us go and go with a label that will put it out." And so that's basically where it kind of came to an end. And they signed to another label called Pessimizer or Theologian by Chris Elder. And they basically stayed with this label for the next 3 albums. And they even wrote a song called Pessimizer on one of the releases. So couple other changes. Rick, who we mentioned, got married and was about to have a kid. Unsurprisingly leaves the band, which forces Randy to go from bass to drums. Eric, who we mentioned, did the artwork, thus joins Grief on bass. Randy would also eventually leave because he got married. This was a problem that kind of persisted throughout the band's history, where they just had a lot of trouble locking down a consistent drummer.
Spinal Tap.
Very Spinal Tap.
They were blowing up. Everybody was just
he choked to death on vomit, but they couldn't determine whose vomit it was.
Right, yeah.
You can't dust for fingerprints for vomit.
So, this band continued to play together for the next, they existed basically for like 10 years. And they broke up in around like 2000, 2001. They played their last show at Mission Records in San Francisco during their West Coast tour. But, obviously this band liked to party hard. Basically Terry said it was alcohol, it was drugs, it was a lack of momentum. Stagnation leads to hostility, no doubt about it. But so that kind of ultimately folded the band. They would, however, get back together in 2005 for some reunion shows together. Terry, I think, played on a few. I think he may have, Disrupt was also active potentially at this point because he basically played the 3 shows. He was like, they wanted to keep going, and he's like, "I'm good. I'm in an active band already." So they continued to press on without Terry, which is kind of, interesting for a guy who kind of started the band. This was like his baby. I think they did like a live record together, played some shows throughout the next few years, and then basically broke up again in 2009. Fast forward even further, I think Terry had gone through rehab. He had maybe taken a break from music for quite a while. He starts to get that itch again. He approaches the band again to start playing shows. They're not into it. So thus you have the formation of Come to Grief in 2014, the title track from this record. This is basically a means for them to play Grief songs again, mainly songs that Terry had written himself. Like this was like the band, I think there was some contention, but Terry at least tried to keep it to only songs that he had like a pivotal part in writing. So he got another ex-Grief member who I think played maybe drums, Chuck Conlon. He was like on a later record, maybe in 2000 era. So those are kind of like the two only original members of Grief. You have some other members come in to kind of fill out like the 4-piece lineup, but I mean, they've essentially like put out When the World Dies in 2022, which I was a big fan of through Translation Lost Records. It was produced by Kurt Ballou, so you kind of have like that Massachusetts connection. And you also have Jacob Bannon on a couple tracks as well, doing some guest vocals. Terry had mentioned in an article too, he's like, yeah, basically like I knew this guy since he was a kid. I saw this Converge like blow up and do all these things. So when I reached out, like he was super cool about it. And, you know, he's guessing on the record. So, you know, kind of a cool little thing where even through all of the depression and all of the bleakness, you're able to kind of come on the other side of it and continue to write music, really heavy shit as well. So, yeah, Come to Grief. I don't know. What do you guys think? I know I gave a lot of information. We went through a very long record coming out on the other side of it. What are your thoughts on Grief, Come to Grief?
I just want to say that those Converge guys he did not watch them grow up. They are almost the same age. Like,
are they?
Jake's gotta be 50
existed
at this point.
Converge existed in the early 90s. So like this album may have come out in 1991, but the first Converge shit's from like 93 or 94. Like,
but how old were they?
I would say that like when he's referring to watch them grow up, he's probably watching them like, oh, the band formed. He's seeing these guys go out and play shows. I wouldn't say he's like, I knew Jake when he was 7.
He was oh, right. Yeah, for sure. The quote really was that I've known Jake since he was very, very young.
Yeah.
And he comes from the same neighborhood that I do. And I watched Converge become this successful band. So I apologize if I worded it weird.
Okay.
Oh, yeah,
I was
weirdo.
like, they were at the same time.
It's like, oh, do you remember the Matt Pike quote where it's just like, he's talking about Slash and he's like, oh yeah, dude, I was like a kid. I was like super young getting into Slash. I'm like, you guys are probably the same age too.
Converge formed in 1990.
There you go.
Right.
Okay. And which is, so in this band formed in 91.
Yeah.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Right.
So yeah, like Bannon was 15 when that band formed.
Damn. Yeah. So he's probably like the older high schooler, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. Thoughts on the record, thoughts on the band.
I think this is a good record. I think it's fine. I don't think I would listen to it definitely once, but I don't think I would be like listening to this record every day or whatever. But it's a good listen to. I'm glad I'm not in that headspace that like this would severely affect me.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely there. It's possible.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Don't listen to this if you're feeling real down.
Hey, it's a heavy record. It's fun. But as Swindle said, I don't know if this would be this type of record because it is so doom centric and maybe a little more drone centric in certain spots. Isn't going to hit like my criteria of records that I would listen to from this kind of multiplier subgenre. It's very much like the Winter record. You know, I may listen to that once every few years or so, but it's not my top of the list. However, that's not to take away from the fact that it is a very strong record. It's a very well crafted record. It's really nice to see when bands are just like, I don't know what the fuck we're doing, but I want to write slow shit and I want to write something that is in my head. It very much is deserving of its classic album kind of title, lineage. It's a great record. It's odd. I haven't really dug into the rest of the band's catalog. So I don't know what that sounds like, but if it sounds anything in vein like this, I know it's going to be enjoyable in its own way. You know, there's a lot of albums that I've listened to throughout the years that make me feel uncomfortable. This is one of them. Dope Sick by I Hate God is one. You know, Through Silver and Blood by Neurosis is another one. So like this is a very pleasantly uncomfortable record. And I hope the band takes that in a very positive light because it is, you know, it's a negative record. It sounds like the guys had fun making it, which adds so much more character to it. It's like, oh yeah, we had fun. We had fun being miserable. We had fun dealing with all the crap in life that comes down and just shoves it down our throats that we're never going to be able to have fun again. We have to follow all these rules. We have to stick with what society wants from us. But you know what? I can get together. I can get in the practice room. I can tune real fucking low. I can play real fucking loud. I can write music that is really aggressive and angry. And I get to hang out with my buddies. And like, there you go. Like, that's one of the best feelings in the world.
Maybe it's because I read the notes that Austin kind of gathered about like the drummer being the person that wrote the lyrics and the people that like recorded it maybe didn't feel the way. But when I listened to this album, I didn't get the same feeling as like Dope Sick. Maybe because like literally the open of Dope Sick is like smashing glass and scream like right off the rip, and I didn't like think it was as depraved as like Acid Bath when the kite strings pop, or like I didn't get the same like deep well of just like depression listening to this album as I would when I listen to Dope Sick or like when the kite strings pop.
Yeah, and maybe that is like, perhaps it could have been like, had I heard this record at those same moments that I did hear Dope Sick or Acid Bath, maybe I'd feel different. I agree with that. I feel like while this record is very heavy and very bleak, and especially if you read along to the lyrics, I think you'll certainly get that vibe. But yeah, maybe because I was younger and more impressionable in those days, when you hear the opening of Dope Sick, it's like very like staggering for the first time. So maybe because I've already experienced that, maybe that it isn't hitting me in the same way. But I will say, I think there is so much about this record to love. And I mean, the story, I was immediately like kind of like captivated, kind of going back and doing the history of this and doing the deep dive, and you know, the sounds that came from it. You know, it's certainly has its place in the history of this subgenre, and it should be classified as like an important record. People should definitely check it out. I'm glad that also that, you know, some of these members were able to like come out on the other side and continue to write and put out cool music, like as like elder statesmen, I guess. Listen to Come to Grief, listen to this record. Yeah, there's so much to dive into here. And with also, I wanted to touch on too, maybe I'll talk about this in the recommendations, as like a band that you know, was more in the punk and hardcore and the crust punk world or whatever. You can still see a lot of that influence to this day on some of the bands, especially bands who have members that started out in hardcore and punk bands that maybe are wanting to slow things down and write just slow, like punishing, pummeling music like this. So I appreciate y'all. And yeah, check it out. Come to Grief, 1984. Great record. All right, we've reached that point of the episode where we like to recommend things we've been listening to, things we've been checking out. We did an episode on Grief, so I wanted to talk about a band that basically played a role into me getting into this band and is directly influenced by Grief. I am, of course, talking about Stomach. This is a now 3-piece sludge doom project from the western suburbs of Chicago, featuring members of Weekend Nachos, Sick Tired, and Sea of Shit, which are all just like kind of veterans of the Chicagoland hardcore and metal scene. It's slow, it's full of feedback, it's full of riffs. It is also very pummeling and punishing. So this is Parasite. This is the debut record, the debut full length. There's a couple demos that predate this record as well. I believe John is working on some new material, so we may hear from him soon. This was, I think, independently released at first, but then the vinyl was put out on Hibernation release record. So check it out. If you love Grief, you'll likely love Stomach. So hell yeah.
I'm going to go in the opposite direction. You're talking about real slow, doomy music. I'm going to go with the 2 new songs by Regional Justice Center, the song Freedom and Take a Step Away. These 2 songs are off the upcoming album Freedom Sweet Freedom that's going to be out on Closed Casket Activities on September 20th. I really like both of Regional Justice Center's previous 2 full lengths, and I'm really looking forward to this third one. Stoked on it.
It's gonna be great. I don't know. They did the midnight, like they posted all of the pre-orders at midnight, and I was just like, gotta get on the thing or whatever. So I hopped for it too. I think they're fucking great. It's so funny too when you know, obviously it's like power violence hardcore shit, but I think I read the length of the record is 13 minutes and there's only 12 songs on it. So
God, there's a long one on there.
yeah.
The last record was I think was also 13 minutes long, like almost exactly. Also the first one, maybe it's Freedom, whatever is listed first on Spotify. The vocals on that song remind me a lot of like Human Furnace, just like fucking screaming like vocals.
Yeah.
I got 3. I always do it to us, right? I'm the one that always gets long-winded. So 3 I have do go in kind of the opposite territory from slow. We're going to start out with the most recent single from New York's own Undeath. This is called Brandish the Blade. It's going to be on their newest and upcoming record released through Prosthetic Records called More Insane. It's coming out on October 4th of this year. Great. It's death metal. I've enjoyed this band from the point that I heard their first record. I really enjoyed their prior record as well. I've seen this band numerous times. I actually got a chance to see them on tour when I believe their vocalist was ill, and they played an instrumental set, which is pretty fucking wild for this type of band. But great band. They write great death metal, great modern death metal at that. Very much in the vein of like, sounds old school, but it doesn't just sound like a throwback. It doesn't just sound like they're trying to ape those old sounds. Really stoked on this. The production's really good on it. This might be the best the band has sounded on record. Mark Lewis of Knoxville fame. I believe he's Knoxville, Nashville, somewhere in that area, has helmed the producer's chair on this one. So looking forward to this record a lot. The album cover is gory and beautiful in all its own right. So yeah, looking forward to that one. The next one I have is a bit of a side project, super group in a weird way, Dreamless Veil, which I had no knowledge of it, but it's a project that includes members of Artificial Brain, Psychroptic, Inter Arma as well. And it is the track A Generation of Eyes coming out on their soon to be released record, Every Limb a Flood, coming out on Relapse Records on September 20th. It's black metal, but it's not just straightforward black metal. There's dissonant aspects to it. The drums are fucking wild because the drummer from Psychroptic is a fantastic drummer. And I was really kind of caught off guard with this. This is really fun. I don't think Relapse really has a ton of black metal projects on there. Mirkur is on there, but that's not even like traditional black metal at this point. That's a little bit more in the almost like post kind of vein. But again, great track, definitely a surprise of the week. And then the last track I have is probably the most straightforward and kind of traditional sounding, which is New Tribulation. I love this band. I've loved this band. And I really got into them with the Down Below record, which if you dig into our archives, we did an episode on. But I'm really digging the vibe and the direction on these new tracks. I'm not the biggest fan of like goth rock, but this has a really cool vibe of that. The vocals are very, I wouldn't even know what to compare it to, like Bauhaus or Sisters of Mercy, maybe. The new track is titled Tainted Skies. It is the second single off their upcoming release, Sub Rosa in Eternum, coming out through Century Media Records on November 1st, 2024. Everything about this band just makes me happy. I like the kind of vibe of like black metal, goth rock, almost like the cult style hard rock even in there. The album cover reminds me of like the Sonic Temple album cover a little bit. So really looking forward to this shit.
Check it all out. It's been fun talking about this very bleak and heavy record. We'll be back next week with something else, I'm sure. Follow us at Riff Worship Pod, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We also have an email, riffworshippod@gmail.com. You can reach out to us that way. You can comment, subscribe, and rate below wherever you're listening to podcasts. We also have reviews from the Dillbozer's Den. Dylan talking about some contemporary albums, some albums that have been coming out. He recently just did one on Crypt Sermon, so check that record out. Check out that review. We also have playlists available for you to check out as well. Hits from the Crypt, as well as riffs on repeat. They're updated pretty frequently, so you're always going to find something pretty new and hopefully something you'll love. So until then, for myself, for Swindle, for Dylan, this has been Riff Worship. We'll see you later. Bye. Something. See ya.